Hey everybody, welcome back to the Entrepreneur's Essentials. Absolutely gorgeous day here in Austin, Texas today, and really proud to be recording this chapter for you. It's one that really takes me back to the beginning of us moving back to Austin from Silicon Valley and that consideration that people have when they start a business. Should they bootstrap or VC? So here's chapter 5, Bootstrap or VC. For this lesson from the Entrepreneur's Essentials on this long Thanksgiving weekend, I'm going to revisit a post I wrote at the beginning of Lucky 7. Although bootstrapping is still an approach in Austin, a lot has changed since I wrote my original challenge to the Bootstrap Austin group back in 2005. Entrepreneurs are thinking bigger than ever before in Austin, and the rocket fuel that VC funding provides is becoming more and more of a norm rather than the exception. I don't think we could have built a business as ambitious as Dated Out World without VC and angel backing, and we've raised $45.3 million to date from some of the best, including most recently Workday and others. Since I've written this, we've now raised $76.3 million. So here we go with this lesson from the Entrepreneur's Essentials. It was first shared at lucky7.io on December 5th, 2012, and it is a very personal post. As I reflect on it, it is kind of amazing to me that I started Bazaar Voice with Brent Barden just a few months after. You can see why I'm wearing the Bazaar Voice t-shirt today, one of my favorites. I made very few edits to the original post below, mostly in the area of readability, not in substance of content. I woke up around 4:30 a.m. today thinking about the roots of Bazaar Voice, what I teach entrepreneurs, and the debates I used to have with a group that I am indebted to, Bootstrap Austin, started by Bijoy Goswami. The original Bootstrap Austin was truly special, and Bijoy did an amazing job bringing together some terrific entrepreneurs. It was there that I met Eric Simoni, one of the first investors in Bazaar Voice and now the founder and CEO of Clearblade, company we're proud investors in, as well as Josh Baer, one of the first investors in Bazaar Voice through his team building our first solution at Bazaar Voice and getting paid primarily in equity versus cash. Below is a post I wrote on Bootstrap Austin's Yahoo Groups list on March 15th, 2005. My first day at Bazaar Voice was just a few weeks later on May 2nd, 2005. And we built a company from inception to IPO on around 12 million of capital use out of the 24 million we raised in 7 years, creating over 1,000 jobs and impacting clients all over the world, starting the global social commerce movement and changing the face of commerce forever. This post addresses a topic that is still very prevalent in my hometown of Austin today, a never-ending debate about bootstrapping versus VC backing. Unlike the Valley, Austin entrepreneurs are not as experienced in this area, and unfortunately, it holds our city back from creating jobs and wealth more quickly, which ultimately drives everything from philanthropy to the achievement of your life dreams. As an entrepreneur, you make your own choices about how to raise capital and how ambitious you actually are. What I'm dedicated to doing now is educating entrepreneurs on the possibilities and helping you decide what path is right for you. To be ignorant on this topic is to hold our city, my hometown, back. That is why I'm stepping up to help those who want to be helped. Written on March 15th, 2005, while I was still at Core Metrics prior to our around $300 million exit to IBM. Bootstrappers. I have been following this thread with a lot of interest. Ultimately, I find this to be a religious debate with no right answer. Only your personal desires as an entrepreneur will guide you through this one. And I am encouraged by how much frank detail Gary Hoover shared, so I thought I would weigh in with my own thoughts. My parents were always bootstrappers. They were lifestyle entrepreneurs. They didn't want to report to anyone, and they were successful in that goal for over 30 years in business. They are retired now and did pretty well. They also raised 2 kids that turned out to be pretty successful. Growing up, I can remember how jealous my friends were of my parents having so much time to be parents instead of work all the time. As a result, I grew up wanting to be an entrepreneur. I took a very non-traditional path to get there, going into IT consulting for Andrew Consulting, now named Accenture, then to Deloitte Consulting, and ultimately to get my MBA at Wharton, which was ranked #1 at the time for 6 years in a row by Businessweek. I wrote all of my MBA essays about starting a business. I feel good about getting in and full of entrepreneurial energy, or I felt good about getting in. When I got to Wharton, I almost immediately began to apply my IT consulting skills to do independent consulting work. I grossed around $350 an hour on some projects and felt pretty good about it. I went to school and almost always worked through the evening until 2 or 3 in the morning. I proved to myself that I could bootstrap. I started 4 businesses at Wharton, all profitable and bootstrapped, and a 5th, which was Core Metrics, an angel then VC funded. One was my consulting firm. Those are very easy to bootstrap. I farmed out work to Wharton undergrads that were in the management of technology program. I paid them $25 an hour and billed them out at $50 an hour or more. These were super smart folks with average SAT scores of 1470 or more, as Wharton was and is also rated #1 in undergraduate studies. I made good money consulting, more in the summer than almost all of my classmates who took traditional jobs. I never raised money because I didn't need to. Profitable from day one. I felt in control of my destiny, but it wasn't going to be a huge company. The second was MBA Zone. It was an ad-supported virtual community, still in business today and run by my co-founder. I sold $5,000 of banner advertising within 1 week of launching the site. It was then profitable, but of course we weren't paying ourselves salaries, unlike my consulting gig. I decided I wasn't passionate about running an ad-supported business and sold my stake to my co-founder. The third was Insight Solutions. It was a virtual classroom management application and an outgrowth of one of my consulting projects. I had MIT, Harvard, University of Chicago, and other top-tier schools interested in buying it, and Wharton actually used the solution, and they kept it for 4 years. I decided not to do it ultimately because the market was too small when I ran the numbers. And ultimately, I wasn't that passionate about it. Passion is so important, especially at the beginning. The fourth was Body Matrix, an online sports nutrition store. I built the e-commerce engine myself and self-funded the business. The margins were small given the competition, around 10 to 20% depending on the item, but I grew the revenues at a pretty impressive clip and sold the business 2 years later. The 5th business was Core Metrics. Core Metrics was a very different experience in a very large and competitive market. I almost immediately raised $2 million in angel funding, and fast forward to today, I've raised $67 million total for the business, with around $64 million from VCs. That is a ton of money, too much really. Would never have been that much if not for the crazy boom times when the mantra was get big fast, no matter the cost. But down the road, it did lead to some great things. We service 350 retail clients today with 100 employees, 40 partners, and a solution that is rated number one in our industry by Forrester Research and Jupiter Research. Of course, you could discount all of our execution by saying, well, I could have easily done the same thing if I were funded with that much capital. And you may be right. I was young, got caught up in the hype, and have very much enjoyed the ride. The education has been so far more valuable than what I learned at Wharton. And that isn't to say I don't value my MBA. I'll spare you any more details, but would be happy to speak about my adventures in a future meeting. CoreMetrics has been the biggest adventure of them all. I've been doing this for 6 years, a long time, but I have always been passionate about our idea and always wanted us to be number one in our industry. What have I learned from all this? It is easy to get a business profitable without funding if it is service-based, and you personally have the skills to do the first few projects. It is also easy to get a business profitable if you're in a very niche market that is extraordinarily easy and cheap to launch in, like, for example, a small retailer. But if you want to swing for the fences with a huge business idea, it is almost impossible to do that without some funding. Why? Because it almost always requires capital to build a complex, difficult to copy solution. It isn't the early days of technology anymore. VCs didn't exist prior to the 1970s, and through the 1970s and 1980s, it was almost all corporate VC money. Now VC capital is available by the tens of billions. And if you have a business that is going to be of any significant size, you will almost always need to raise money at some point, because someone else that is more aggressive will launch into that industry with massive amounts of capital and almost always overtake you. You will be left with a niche business, which may be your goal, and there is certainly nothing wrong with that, but you won't be number one. And if you ever make it that far, it will be with a tremendous amount of luck. In my humble opinion, the hat trick as an entrepreneur is to swing for the fences by launching a huge business idea, get it profitable early, and then get funding to accelerate your growth if needed. I failed to do that with CoreMetrics, and I paid dearly for it with dilution. But I don't look at VCs or angel investors as evil. They are the capital enablers for big business ideas. And if your interests are aligned with them, you can both make a ton of money. It is prevalent all over the valley. Most of the entrepreneurs driving the Bentleys, as was referenced in the article sent out in an earlier thread, grew their businesses fast with VC capital, got them public, and sold a ton of stock. It is much different here in Austin. Throughout Austin, I have noticed there's a huge aversion to VCs, almost too much so. Austin would have been better off economically if more people were swinging for the fences. A combination of the camel and rocket strategy is best. Holding your venture hostage to maintain 100% control may be the best way to protect your equity, but it certainly isn't going to propel you into market leadership status. At the end of the day, you have to balance what is best for you personally with what is best for the business. Depending on how competitive and capital intensive your market is, the best thing you can do is be open to all options to fuel growth. Now, if your goal is to own 100% always, be your own boss forever, and not worry about whether or not your company is going to be number one at what it does, then my advice probably doesn't apply. And as my parents showed me, it certainly leads to a very good quality of life, although there were a few rough years here and there. It all depends on your personal ambition, but to frown on others that raise money and think they are idiots for doing so is a religious argument, not a rational business argument. Depending on how capital intensive your business idea is and how much personal wealth you have to self-fund it, You may have to give up a little control and equity, bite the bullet, and raise some money from wealthier people that are looking to make 10x returns for themselves or their investors, as is the case for venture capitalists. By the way, I very much enjoy being a part of this group. Bejoy has put together an awesome group of people, and I have been learning some good lessons in our meetings. The speakers have been fantastic. I tell Bejoy that our speakers are better than many of the best presentations I attended while living in Silicon Valley for 4 years. We're lucky to be part of this group during such a unique time in business history. Best, Brett. Note, this was originally posted on my blog at lucky7.io, where I've been writing about primarily entrepreneurship since 2012. The original post is there, and I provide a link on Medium, along with an interesting comments thread from that time. I would love to hear how you personally made this decision as an entrepreneur. What were the trade-offs for you? If you're a VC, what do you think about this? And I suggest 2 additional readings if you'd like to dig further into this topic. Number 1, The Founder's Dilemma, I linked to that on Medium, by Noam Wasserman from the February 2008 Harvard Business Review. Do you want to be rich or do you want to be king? I wish this article was out when I wrote that letter to Bootstrap Austin in 2005, as it kind of frames the trade-off perfectly. Number 2, the book Small Giants by Bo Burlingham. I also linked to that on Medium, which originally came out in 2006 and published a 10-year anniversary edition in 2016. This is a beautiful book on business culture and tough decisions from bootstrappers who wanted to build their businesses forever. I like to look at both sides of any debate or decision, and this book will really steep you in the potential of what bootstrapping can be. Thanks, everybody.